Hi there. So today we're going to be talking about a subject that I think stumps a lot of people. I have a very sophisticated clientele, at least I think they're sophisticated, and they have a difficult time with what we're going to be talking about today. So if they are, I think a lot of people are, and it's something to get to the bottom of. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen, and we're going to start on a PowerPoint here. So just bear with me. So I want to start off with first, what are you most concerned about getting at some time during your lifetime? A lot of people are concerned about cardiovascular disease, diabetes, is it high blood pressure, is it cancer, enlarged prostate, thyroid disease, eczema, migraines, heart attack, which is part of cardiovascular disease, kidney failure, stroke, Crohn's, colitis, IBS, ED, infertility, depression, anxiety. I would say that most of us at some time in our lives are going to experience something like this, okay? And I think the question is, are these diseases caused by diet and lifestyle, or is it genetics? And I would say it is a little bit of genetics, but most of our genes are turned on and off by diet and by lifestyle. So one of the aspects of diet is understanding what we actually put into our body. So that's what we're going to be talking about today. We're going to be talking about labels. And enough of us buy foods that are packaged. I think very few people actually are unable to do that. It's a really good tool to have to know exactly how to read labels. So if food products were honestly labeled, I absolutely adore this cartoon. They would be labeled colon cancer dogs. They would be labeled chemical helpers, for sure diabetes drink, ADHD flakes. This is really true. So we are going to take a deep dive into that today, which I'm very excited about. And again, reading labels can be tricky, it can be confusing, but really, really important. And again, I already brought up how sophisticated I feel like my clients are. And most of them stop at the nutrient labels, which is where most people stop at. And I'm going to show you right now why that is very confusing. So first of all, a calorie is not just a calorie. We need to have that understanding. A fat is not just a fat. A protein is not just a protein. A carbohydrate is not just a carbohydrate. And I'm going to show you here in this nutrient label, comparing two different types of maple syrup, and then you can actually see what's inside and makes up these figures. So without further ado, we're going to look at this. So I put basically two nutrient labels, right? And those are what's on the nutrient labels is usually the serving size, the amount of calories that are in the serving size. And so that's really important to know what the serving size is when we are comparing apples to apples. And the total amount of fats, proteins, the type of fats usually in there as well, total amount of carbohydrates, total amount of sugar, and then some other micronutrients are usually in there. And trans fat is usually listed on there. So we have got syrup A and we have got syrup B. And again, one is real maple syrup and one is a fake maple syrup. And if serving size is 4 tablespoons, which is a quarter cup, same thing. And the amount of calories in a quarter cup, or 4 tablespoons, and each one of these is 210. Okay, so the calories are the same. The amount of fat, 0, protein, 0, total carbohydrates, 152, 153. So negligible difference here. Fiber is not here. Sugar, we've got 54 and 52. Again, a negligible difference here. And I'm not putting the sodium and potassium or the calcium and the iron, just it doesn't really matter in this case. And it really wasn't significant anyway. But I want you to take a look at this. Can you tell just by looking at the nutrient label which one is real and which one is fake? So let's reveal. So the one on the left, okay, is the fake one. It's the Aunt Jemima. And let's look at the ingredients. And this shows us why a calorie is not a calorie. A carbohydrate is not a carbohydrate. because of the ingredients in the Aunt Jemima, we have corn, fructose, corn syrup, water, cellulose gum, caramel color, salt, natural and artificial flavors, sodium benzoate and sorbic acid as preservatives, sodium hexamine phosphate. And then in the real maple syrup, all we have is real maple syrup. So would you be able to tell which one if you just looked at the nutrient label? No, you would not be able to tell which one is better. And when you look at the ingredient label, you can tell which one you would like to have in your body, which one you would like to have to purchase. Okay. So here is just something I want to bring up here of how important it is, again, to read your ingredients. Always, always, always. Nutrient labels are important, but ingredient labels are perhaps even more important. So, you know, most people don't even know how to make cakes or muffins anymore. It's just basically flour, sugar, eggs, which is your binder, and maybe some type of fat and some leavening. That's really all that should be in it. It's very, very easy to make. If you buy a boxed muffin mix or cake mix or something like that, this is what you're going to see. Sugar is number one ingredient. And then we have our enriched flour, and it tells us in the parentheses was in that enriched flour. Then we have vegetable oil, shortening, partially hydrogenated soybean oil, which means that there are trans fats in it, even though it might not be on the label. Soybean oil is a genetically modified crop, unless it says organic. So we're getting GMOs, we're getting trans fats. We have propylene glycol, mono and diesters of fat, leavening, okay, sodium bicarbonate. We have dextrose, pineapple juice powder, corn syrup solids, natural and artificial flavors, cellulose gum, and then we have the wonderful food colorings, yellow 5 and red lake and blue whatever. So this is an awful lot of junk to basically to get to the same thing as if we were just to pull things out from scratch. So I just want to, again, point out the importance of reading ingredients of things that you think might be fairly innocuous. One more example here, barbecue sauce. So on the right is the listing of what's in the bullseye, okay? And again, if I was to take the nutrient labels, which would give us the calories and the amount of sugar and carbohydrates, it would be fairly close. But you can see again that the ingredients are very, very different. So on the right, we have the high fructose corn syrup. We do not want high fructose corn syrup because that goes immediately to our liver and it causes a fatty liver. And that again is a GMO crop. It's got tomatoes, molasses, modified food starch. It's got the potassium sorbate to preserve freshness. So it's not horrible, other than the high fructose corn syrup. It's pretty horrible. And then the potassium sorbate, why do we need to do that? Okay. Now over here on the left, I don't have a picture of it, but this is the barbecue sauce from Trader Joe's. First ingredient is not sugar. First ingredient is water. Second ingredient is apple cider vinegar, tomato paste, molasses. Then we have cane sugar. So cane sugar is not a modified crop. We have stone ground mustard, mustard seed. We have canola, or we have expeller pressed vegetable oil, which is not maybe the best thing, but at least it's expeller pressed, so it's cold pressed. It's not heated up, and that's where we have a lot of breakdown and can cause a lot of inflammation. The other thing about this, everything that is an asterisk means that it is organic. So even though canola oil and soy oil are typically genetically modified crops, if they're organic, they're not going to be genetically modified. So this is a much superior barbecue sauce than the bullseye. And just looking at where the cane sugar is listed, it's going to be also a lot less sugar. Bullseye has 6 grams of sugar per tablespoon, and people go, well, that's no big deal. Well, maybe you use 2 tablespoons of barbecue sauce on your chicken or your ribs or whatever you're eating. Well, that's 12 grams. And a lot of people say, I don't eat that much sugar. Well, I'm not so sure. And here again, that's where it's really important that you do read your ingredient label. You also read your nutrient labels, and you also read the serving size. So jam's going to have up to 12 grams of sugar. Yogurt can have up to 17 grams of sugar. Your sweet tea, 22 grams. Your soup, oh my gosh, your soup and Prego spaghetti sauce can have 9 to 10 grams of sugar. And I can taste it. Peanut butter can have sugar in it. Your ketchup, peanut butter, here again, your salad dressing. So you really do need to look at your ingredients. By the way, Max, I don't even know how to say his last name, Lucaveri, is great to follow on Instagram. He does a lot of diagrams like this, and I did steal it from him, but he did a great job, and here we are. So, okay, so here are some of the top artificial ingredients to avoid. There's a list here. If you're in one of my classes, you'll have a list in your companion guide that you can follow along with. The first is aspartame, and that's the same thing as sweet and low. Then we have alsulfame, K, and that's an artificial sweetener. And something like muscle milk that's very low in sugar, that's not that expensive, it's probably going to have alsulfame in it, okay, as a sweetener. And you kind of get what you pay for. You don't want that. High fructose corn syrup, you want to stay from sucralose. Sucralose will also be in something like muscle milk. And sucralose is different from sucrose, which is sugar. Sucralose is the same thing as Splenda. Then MSG, monosodium glutamate, the whole list here, partially hydrogenated oils are also considered trans fats. You can have that in your food and still have 0 on the nutrient label of trans fat, and it's all political. They just get to be underneath the radar here. Your food diets you want to avoid, especially young children. It seems to affect their nervous system. It can anyway. We have preservatives, BHA, BHT, preserves the fat. All these preservatives down here. Potassium bromate is a bread conditioner, so you find that in a lot of your breads. And then GMO seeds, seed oils like canola and soybean would be a no-no. But here again, if they are organic, you're moving in the right direction. I know I still use mayonnaise. I don't make my own homemade mayonnaise, but I always get organic mayonnaise, which will have soybean oil in it. So these are the top ones to avoid. I want to talk just a moment about GMO crops and why it's so important. So there's basically 6 GMO crops. You can add papaya to this. It's corn, beets, soy, alfalfa, canola oil, and cottonseed oil or cottonseed. And what exactly is a GMO crop? A GMO crop is not necessarily a hybridized crop, which we might see with a plumquat, or which is a plum and an apricot, or big, huge apples, or anything like that. It's when they've actually bred a pesticide in the seed. So they've actually changed the dynamics of DNA of the seed. And the reason why they do that is so that these crops are resistant to Roundup or glyphosate. So what they can do is to prevent pests, to prevent weeds, and all sorts of things like that. They can heavily spray these crops with the pesticides and not kill the actual plant. So what happens is when we actually eat corn, beets, soy, alfalfa, canola oil, when we eat those, we are ingesting glyphosate as we eat them. Our animals are eating these crops as well, so we're getting a load from them. How can you avoid this? Is basically eating organic corn, and beets. I mean, you might say, well, I don't eat beets. Well, you might be eating beets not knowing it. If you're buying something that is processed and not very expensive, candy, things like that, if it just says sugar on it, on the label, and not cane sugar, then it's made from beet sugar. So your less expensive items will be usually made from beet sugar. So that's genetically modified. Cotton, we wear cotton, right? And cotton is genetically modified. So there's a good chance that we are wearing clothing that has some glyphosate on it. And some would argue that glyphosate, scientists would argue that glyphosate is not absorbed by our body because they measure what comes in and what comes out. That may be true. but there are many, many studies showing that glyphosate really changes our gut bacteria, so our microbiome. And I think it's one of the reasons why we're seeing so many more food allergies, as well as irritable bowel disease, so Crohn's and colitis and things like that. So I think that's contributing to it. So stay away from these. It's not a whole bunch of foods. Just eat them organic as much as you possibly can, whatever you bring in your house. Make these organic, okay? You don't have as much control outside of your home. Okay, something that's really helpful is going to a website. It's the EWG, it's Environmental Working Group. And they have the Dirty Dozen and the Clean 15. This was all the way back in 2017, so it's just a little bit dated, but it's still very, very useful. And I would put that on your refrigerator or put it in your phone, whatever you need to, until you get used to the things that you can and cannot get away with buying organic. So that's a really helpful tool. So I'm going to talk about the myths about eating healthy, and that has to do with labels. It has to do with buying organic and knowing what you're putting in your body. So a lot of people would say it's too expensive. Well, you might be paying a little bit more for organic produce. You're going to be paying probably a lot more for grass-fed meats and organic meats as well. But either you're paying it now or you're paying it down the road with all those chronic diseases or some of those chronic diseases that I listed at the beginning of the presentation. The other thing is sometimes we can get really lucky here. I got lucky the other day and I went into a local health food store that's kind of pricey. I don't go there very often on purpose. And I was looking for something. I thought, I know they carry liver, so I'm going to look for some grass-fed liver. And I found it, and it was about $3.75 a pound. That is next to nothing. And so that feeds me for 3 meals. And I can make some vegetables with it. And I'm getting a lot of nutrients and proteins and iron and all sorts of other things that's difficult to get from something other than liver, choline. So it doesn't have to be. You just have to be a little bit more creative. And when you're spending a little bit more money in food, I know myself, I am watching my waste as well. It's boring. Oh my gosh. No, it's not boring to eat healthy. You just have to know how to do it and try different recipes. If you don't like to cook, then I would say maybe do a company that delivers food in a kit, so you get used to how the ingredients are. Something like Sunbasket, who does organic and paleo. There's other companies out there. So you're just trading out things. It takes too much time to make good food. Here again, a company that has things packaged up is helpful. I also have some really helpful hacks, and I'm busy too, so I do Trader Joe's and Costco hacks. And if you'd like to know more about that, just let me know. And again, if you're in one of my programs, that will be included in your companion guide. If you're not in one of my programs, feel free to email me at cindy@alivingbalance.net. I don't know how to cook. Well, if you don't know how to cook, you're going to get a surface, or you're going to have to learn at least some of the basics, or befriend someone who's willing to teach you. Okay. I don't know where to get the ingredients. Well, there's lots of different places you can get the ingredients. You can use thrivemarket.com. You can, Sprouts is great. TJ's is great. To get grass-fed meats, there's Butcher Box. There's a couple other services out there. I don't have a store close that has good ingredients, with everything that's happened in the pandemic. That's no longer a viable reason. You got Sprouts, it'll deliver Instacart. You've got Thrive Market, you have all of that. It's gotten much, much easier to get really good quality food. I feel deprived. Oh my gosh. There's so many things you can do, and learning how to season your foods and using lots of butter, lots of good fats. You'll be really happy, I promise you. It's just learning how to do it. And again, your companion guide, if you're in one of my programs, will be really helpful in guiding you to that. I do have a couple of videos on YouTube, there's only 2, on how to make chocolate pudding and how to make some chocolate coconut macaroons. Whole30 has a ton of videos on their website, which can be really helpful to you. I won't be able to eat out. Yes, you will be able to eat out. You just have to make different choices. And again, the companion guide, you'll be privy to those choices. So, I know this is about labels, but it definitely correlates and is easy to segue into eating healthy in general, because that's all part of that. So I'm just going to end you with this, again, a little cartoon. And on the left, we have smiling, happy people. And they're the ones that are buying really good food, because it really does make a difference. And then we have the other people that are choosing to go the pharmacy route, and they look old and they look tired and decrepit. And that is really how people look if they make that choice and don't make lifestyle change or don't make lifestyle changes. So I hope this is helpful. I hope that you will, for the next couple days, weeks, for the rest of your life, really become avid label readers. All righty. Thank you so much.